So today I'm going to be giving a brief overview of the Russia and Ukraine conflict. And to start off, I think it's important that we talk about why Putin decided to invade in the first place. I think the key to understanding this is understanding that Ukraine has gone through somewhat of a political and cultural revolution over the last 5 to 10 years. They got rid of their sitting president in 2014, who was more of a dictator figure and more pro-Russia. And ever since then, they've adopted more of a Western-style democracy. They've gone as far as to extend a friendly handout to the United States, as well as many other European countries, in hopes of joining NATO. Now, the idea is that in order to keep Ukraine out of NATO, and in order to extinguish any Western influence in a neighboring country, Putin decided to invade and try to take over Ukraine. Now, what has the United States done about this? The United States, along with many other countries, have put forward heavy sanctions against Russia. So what exactly do these sanctions mean? And I'll talk about it from the US perspective. Okay, what the United States is saying with these sanctions is that if you continue to go through with this, if you continue to go through with an unprovoked attack against Ukraine, then you are going to have to do so. You're going to have to survive independently. We're not going to do business with you anymore. We are freezing your assets. We are limiting the amount of business transactions that could go on between us, the United States, and Russia, and you're going to have to go it alone. We are penalizing the Russian economy because of what they are doing. Now, up until this point, the support that the United States has offered has been primarily just economic and political. They have not sent any physical troops. They haven't sent any troops into Ukraine. However, they have sent some 14,000 troops to other European countries so they can help bolster the amount of support for NATO countries that are within NATO. Now, what is most amazing about this story is that the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian people have actually held out much better than is expected. The initial fear was that Ukraine would fall quite rapidly, and then Russia would use that momentum to push through other parts of Europe as well. But because the Ukrainian people continue to hold out so well, they are actually saving people from further conflict. They are in some way, the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainian government is keeping a World War III scenario off the table. If they continue to hold out, if they continue to destroy Russian military forces, then that makes it less likely that Russia will push through Ukraine, take them over, and then move on to other parts of Europe. So they are suffering alone right now. They are, as far as manpower, as far as military power goes, they are suffering on their own, but they are in one way or another saving many lives by keeping Russia at bay and keeping them away from other European countries. Now, this doesn't mean that they're going to win in the end. And unfortunately, we could see one of those scenarios because of the things that Putin has said. He's been somewhat aggressive by talking about the potential of nuclear attack. So this could be a scenario where if Russia can't actually take over Ukraine, Putin might just pull the good old, if I can't have it, nobody can, and just nuke Ukraine, which would be very unfortunate. And then at that point, we would have to see what the other nations of the world do. So America is kind of standing by, waiting to see what happens, waiting to see how things progress. And I believe our thoughts and prayers should be with the people of Ukraine because they are suffering greatly. And one thing that I want to say is that when tragedies like this happen, when horrible things like this happen, it really puts everything into perspective. You know, we seem hyper-focused on the issues, the political issues that are going on in the United States, but there are people who are legitimately suffering, and they are dealing with it. They are facing a real threat of tyranny, and they are dealing with it. And I think that we could learn some things by focusing less on our own little issues and focusing more on how people deal with these bigger issues. I mean, there are plenty of heroes. Of all the foolishness that I have seen in American politics and pop culture, of all the hope that people put into our fake heroes here in the United States, I think it would be good for us to turn an eye to the heroes that are in Ukraine right now. The president of Ukraine, President Zelensky, The United States government offered to pick him up and fly him out of Ukraine. And he said no, he refused. And he was going to stay behind and support his people and fight for his people, fight with his people. Okay, that should speak volumes, not only for his character as a leader, but that should speak volumes into what we're facing in America right now. So I think that this really puts things into perspective, and I hope that it ends well as it could, as well as it can for the Ukrainian people.